Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The air in New York City was crisp. That autumn morning, a rare calm had settled over the world, the kind of peace that comes after a hard-won victory. Clark stood on the balcony of the Hall of Heroes, gazing at the skyline, his cape fluttering gently in the breeze. Below him, the city was alive with people moving about their day, blissfully unaware of the dangers that once loomed over them. For the first time in years, Earthsea's defenders had nothing major to contend with. No alien invasions, no global threats, just the occasional petty crime. And that was nothing compared to what he and the other heroes had faced in the past. But Clark's senses were sharp, always on alert, and today something felt off. Thinking too much again, Clark? The voice behind him was unmistakable. Tony Stark, the genius billionaire and inventor of the world's most advanced combat suit, strode up beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. His casual demeanor was the exact opposite of Clark's constant vigilance, but that was their dynamic. They were partners in protecting the world, despite their different approaches. I don't know, Tony, there's something in the air today. Didn't put my finger on it. Tony smirked. It's just the smell of pumpkin spice, my friend. Relax. The world isn't turning today. Clark took the coffee Tony offered him and sipped, though his eyes remained focused on the horizon.
I hope you were right, but after everything we've seen, you can blame me for being cautious.
Tony's gaze softened. I get it, but for once try to enjoy the peace. We've earned it. Clark gave a small nod, but the uneasy feeling gnawed at him. And then, as if on cue, the peaceful atmosphere shattered. The sky darkened unnaturally fast, like a curtain of shadows being pulled across the city. The temperature dropped abruptly, and the distant hum of the city below turned into panicked shout. Clark set his coffee down, his muscles tensing. That's not a normal storm. No kidding, Tony said, his voice tense as he reached for the device embedded in his wrist. Within seconds, his sleek, red and gold suit of armor began assembling itself around him. Looks like your spidey sense was right, after all. Before they could react further, a loud crash echoed from downtown. The ground shook beneath them, and in the distance, they saw buildings collapsing, not from an earthquake or explosion, but as if they were being swallowed by shadows. Clark's eyes widened. No, it can't be. Tony turned to him, already airborne in his suit. What is it? Mechs, Clark whispered, the name of a villain long thought to be dead. Without another word, Clark took off, flying toward the chaos. Tony followed closely, his suit, thrusters roaring to life. As they neared the epicenter of the disturbance, they saw a towering figure, draped in swirling darkness, standing amidst the ruins of a building. His face was barely visible through the shadows, but the malevolent energy radiating from him was unmistakable. Next, Tony said, landing beside Clark. How is he still alive? Clark shook his head. I don't know, but we need to stop him before this gets worse. Just as they prepared to confront the shadowy figure, something even more disturbing appeared on the scene. A group of figures emerged from the darkness, but these weren't ordinary henchmen. They were heroes, once noble defenders of Earth, now twisted, their eyes glowing with a dark, unnatural light. At the front of the group stood Captain Valor, one of the most respected and powerful heroes Clark had ever known. But now his aura of righteousness had been replaced by something sinister. No way, Tony muttered. Not Valor. Clark stepped forward, his voice steady despite the shock. Valor, this isn't you. Nyx is controlling you. Fight it. But Captain Valor's expression was cold, devoid of any recognition or compassion. He raised his shield, now blackened and cracked, and charged at Clark with terrifying speed. The clash was immediate and brutal. Clark caught Valor's size shield with both hands, the impact sending shockwaves through the air. Valor, listen to me. You don't have to do this. Behind them, Tony was already locked in combat with 2 more corrupted heroes, Swift Strike, a speedster with lightning reflexes, and Iron Hawk, whose metallic wings sliced through the air with deadly precision. This isn't a therapy session, Clark Tony shouted, narrowly dodging Swift Strike's attack. They were trying to kill us. Clark knew Tony was right. As much as he wanted to save his friends, they were too far gone, at least for now. He gritted his teeth and pushed back against Valor, using all his strength to hurl the corrupted hero into a nearby wall. We need to figure out how Nyx is controlling them, Clark said, joining Tony's side. Working on it, Tony replied, his suit scanning the corrupted heroes for any signs of mind control. But this isn't high-tech based at something darker. Before they could devise a plan, Nick Sal's voice echoed through the ruins, cold and mocking. You cannot stop the inevitable. The age of light is over. The Shadowstone has returned, and with it, I will reshape this world in my image. Clark's eyes narrowed. The Shadowstone, that's not how he said doing it. Tony's head lit up with a warning as Nick's power surged, the shadows around him, expanding and swallowing everything in their path. Whatever this Shadowstone is, we need to destroy it. Fast. Clark nodded, but before they could act, Nyx raised his hand, and the corrupted heroes were upon them once more. Captain Valor, Swift Strike, and Iron Hawk fought with a ferocity that made it clear they were no longer holding back. Every punch, every strike was aimed to kill. Clark deflected another blow from Valor's sire shield, his mind racing. They couldn't keep fighting like this, not without a plan. Tony, he called out as he dodged Swift Strike's lightning-fast assault. We need to fall back, regroup. Tony, struggling to fend off Iron Hawk's house attacks, barely managed to nod agreed. Let's move. With a burst of speed, Clark grabbed Tony and took to the sky, flying them both out of the immediate danger zone. They landed on a nearby rooftop, catching their breath as the corrupted heroes regrouped below. This is bad, Tony said, his helmet retracting to reveal a grim expression. Nyx is stronger than ever, and now he's got a team of corrupted heroes backing him up. Clark paced his mind, working overtime. We can beat them like this. We need to find out how Nyx came back and how he's controlling the others. Tony nodded, pulling up a holographic map of the city. There's only one place I know of that might have the answers, the Oracle. Clark frowned. The Oracle? You mean that ancient entity you've ever been studying? Yeah, she said the closest thing we have to a repository of knowledge on ancient mystical artifacts like the Shadowstone. If anyone knows how to stop Nyx, it's sent her. Clark glanced back at the chaos below. Time was running out. If they didn't he act soon, Nyx's influence would spread and more heroes could fall under his control. Let's go. They flew across the city, leaving the immediate battlefield behind. As they neared the location of the Oracle Sanctum, Tony spoke, his tone more serious than usual. Clark, there is such chance we can't save them, right? The others, Valor, Swift Strike, Iron Hawk, they might be too far gone. Clark clenched his fists. I want to accept that. There has to be a way to save them. Tony didn't argue, but his silence spoke volume. When they reached the Oracle Sanctum, they were greeted by an ethereal presence. The Oracle, a being of light and shadow, hovered before them, her form constantly shifting between the two extremes. I know why you've come, the Oracle said, her voice echoing as if it came from the very fabric of reality. Nyx's return was foretold long ago. Clark stepped forward, his voice urgent. We need to know how to stop it. The Shadowstone, what is it? How is he controlling the others? The Oracle said, shifted at Clark, her eyes glowing with ancient knowledge. The Shadowstone is an artifact of great power created by the Guardians of Light to trap the forces of darkness. But in their arrogance, the Guardians underestimated its influence. The Shadowstone was corrupted, and so was Nyx. Clark and Tony exchanged a glance. This was worse than they thought. The Oracle continued. Nyx was once a guardian himself, tasked with protecting the light. But when the Shadowstone's corruption spread, it consumed him, turning him into the very thing he was sworn to fight. Now he seeks to use the Shadowstone to plunge the world into eternal darkness. And the others? Tony asked, Captain Valor and the rest, can we save them? The Oracle hesitated, her gaze shifting to the ground. Their fate is tied to the Shadowstone. As long as it exists, they will remain under its influence. Clark's heart sank. So we destroy the Shadowstone and we free them. The Oracle nodded, but be warned, destroying the Shadowstone will weaken them. They may not survive. Tony sighed, great, so we were stuck between saving the world and possibly killing our friend. Clark's mind raced. There had to be another way, a way to destroy the Shadowstone without sacrificing the other. But time was running out, and Nyx was growing stronger by the second. Thank you, Oracle, Clark said, bowing his head slightly. May the light guide you, the Oracle replied before vanishing into the ether. As they left the Oracle, Sanctum, Tony's voice broke the silence. So what, says the plan, big guy? Clark's jaw tightened. We find the Shadowstone and we destroy it. As Clark and Tony moved swiftly through the city streets, the once familiar buildings seemed foreign under the veil of darkness that had settled over New York. The shadows twisted and coiled as if they had a life of their own, distorting reality. They headed towards the last known location of the Shadowstone, a concealed ancient temple hidden deep in the bowels of the city's abandoned subway system. According to the oracle, Tony said, his voice tense, the Shadowstone should be somewhere beneath us, but this place is a labyrinth. Clark nodded, his gaze scanning the shadows around them. We'll have to split up. It's too dangerous for us to be together, and we can cover more ground that way. Tony adjusted his suit, which flickered with a soft blue glow. Splitting up never goes well in horror movies. Clark smirked slightly, despite the gravity of the situation. This isn't TA movie, Tony. Just stay sharp. Tony disappeared into the darkness with a brief wave, leaving Clark alone with his thought. The shadows seemed to reach for him as he ventured deeper into the subway tunnels, his footsteps echoing off the damp, grimy wall. His enhanced senses were on high alert, ready to detect any sign of danger. The deeper he went, the more the shadows seemed to cling to him, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. An eerie silence had replaced the usual hum of the city, broken only by the sound of his own breathing. Then, without warning, a figure stepped out from the darkness, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to ripple and shift like smoke. Clark Kent, the figure spoke, its voice cold and metallic. You are a fool to come here. The figure materialized into the form of Captain Valor, now a twisted parody of his former self. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and his usually bright costume was now tainted with darkness. Valor Clark's voice was a mix of surprise and concern. What happened to you? Your precious heroes are no longer under your protection, Valor said, his voice carrying an edge of disdain. We serve a higher purpose, now. Clark stepped forward, his eyes resolute. We can help you. Whatever Nyx has done to you, we can fix it. Valor's laugh was hollow and chilling. You think you can save us? We are beyond saving Clark. We are the harbingers of a new era. Before Clark could respond, Valor lunged at him with a burst of dark energy. Clark dodged the attack, summoning his strength to retaliate. The clash between them was fierce, with Valor's dark powers clashing against Clark's superhuman ability. The battle was intense, and it became clear that Valor was not merely under Nyx's control, but was also empowered by the Shadowstone. Meanwhile, Tony navigated the subway tunnels with precision. His suit sensors were calibrated to detect unusual energy signatures, and he was closing in on the location of the Shadowstone. As he turned a corner, he spotted a faint pulsing glow emanating from behind a hidden door covered in ancient runes. With a few adjustments to his suit, he managed to bypass the security mechanisms and push the door open. The chamber beyond was filled with an ominous, pulsating energy. At the center of the room, on a pedestal of dark stone, lay the Shadowstone. Its surface was an ever-shifting mass of shadows, and its dark aura radiated malevolence. Tony approached cautiously, his mind racing with calculations and strategies. He reached for the Shadowstone, but as his hand neared it, the room seemed to come alive with darkness. Figures emerged from the shadows, members of the corrupted superhero team, their eyes glowing with dark power. Tony's suit lit up as he prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Back in the subway tunnels, Clark and Valor's battle reached a crescendo. Clark managed to land a powerful blow, but Valor quickly recovered, his dark energy intensifying. The fight seemed endless, with neither side gaining a definitive upper hand. Clark knew he had to finish this quickly if he wanted to save his friend and stop Nyx. I'm sorry, Valor, Clark said, his voice filled with regret, but I have to stop you. Valor's response was a roar of defiance as he charged at Clark with renewed fury. But just as Clark was about to deliver a decisive strike, a tremor shook the tunnel. The ground cracked open, and a burst of dark energy shot up, separating them. Clark staggered, regaining his footing as he looked around for the source of the disturbance. He saw Tony emerging from a side tunnel, his suit covered in scorch marks and dark residue. Clark, we've found the Shadowstone, Tony shouted, his voice carrying the urgency of the situation. Get to it, Clark responded, his eyes shifting between Tony and the corrupted heroes who were now converging on them. I'll hold them off. Tony nodded and raced towards the chamber with the Shadowstone. Clark braced himself, ready to face the corrupted heroes, including Captain Valor, who had regrouped with the others. The battle was fierce, but Clark's resolve was unbreakable. Tony reached the Shadowstone and examined it closely. He could see the intricate patterns etched into its surface, each one pulsing with dark energy. He knew that destroying it would require more than brute force. It needed to be done with precision to avoid causing a catastrophic backlash. Tony activated a device in his suit, designed to nullify dark energy. The device emitted a high-frequency pulse that began to disrupt the Shadowstone's thick, dark aura. The Shadowstone vibrated violently, and the corrupted heroes, sensing the disruption, became more erratic and aggressive. Clark fought with all his might, holding the heroes at bay as Tony continued his work. The battle raged on, and Clark could feel the strain of fighting against friends who had become enemies. The pain of seeing Valor and the others corrupted by darkness was almost too much to bear. Tony's device worked its magic, and the Shadowstone's energy began to dissipate. The room was filled with blinding light as the dark energy was forced out of the stone. The corrupted heroes staggered, their eyes losing their malevolent glow as they were freed from Nick's under control. As the Shadowstone shattered into 1,000 pieces, the darkness that had enveloped the city began to lift. The corrupted heroes, now themselves, again looked around in confusion and distress. Valor, still reeling from the effects, approached Clark with a look of genuine remorse. "Clark, Tony, I am so sorry. We were controlled. We didn't mean to." Clark placed a reassuring hand on Valor's shy shoulder. It sat over now. "We've been through a lot. Let's focus on making things right." The city slowly returned to its normal state, the shadows receding as daylight broke through the remnants of the dark storm. Tony, Clark, and the freed heroes emerged from the subway, their faces reflecting a mixture of relief and exhaustion. As they looked out over the city now bathed in the warm light of dawn, they knew that the world had been saved once again. But the battle had taken its toll, and the scars of the fight would remain. Yet amidst the chaos and conflict, they found a renewed sense of hope. Clark turned to Tony, a tired but satisfied smile on his face. "Thanks for sticking with me through this." Tony returned the smile, though his eyes still held the weight of the ordeal. "Always. And hey, maybe next time we'll get a little more peace and a lot less darkness." As they walked away from the ruins of the Shadowstone, the city began to heal, and the heroes knew that their bond had been strengthened by the trials they had faced. They faced the shadows and emerged victorious, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And so as the sun rose over New York City, the world began a new chapter with its heroes standing watch, ever vigilant, ever ready. The shadows had been vanquished, but the light of hope shone brighter than ever.